So tonight we're going to talk about how to talk about sex with your kids at any age. And I believe that sexuality is a really good gift from a really good God. And I think it's a positive force for good in the world. My friend Liza says, you talk about sex like it's like mowing the lawn. Talking about sexuality with our children, no matter what age they are, acknowledges that they are sexual beings. And sometimes that can be hard. But I think it's hard if we come to it with a very limited, narrow view of what sexuality means. And I'm going to try to expand our definition of what it means to be a sexual person tonight to maybe make that a little easier. And maybe even seeing ourselves as sexual beings can be hard. People often say to me, but what do I do if my kid asks me about my sex life? Trust me, no kid is going to ask their parents about their sex life. One of the things that's important to realize is that the conversation is going on. You may want to jump in or not, but it's happened. Since 1940, the two major sources of information about human sexuality for young people are peers and the media. There's documented proof that there's kids out there who want to know what you think and want to hear from you and would rather hear from you than other folks. And I think that's important. I think it's important to have a little confidence that indeed this is a good thing for us to do. This actually has benefits. Parents who talk to their kids about sex, those kids are 3 times more likely to use condoms. Kids who use condoms at their first act of sexual intercourse are much more likely to regularly use them. If you can't look your partner in the eye and talk to them about what you want to do, you probably shouldn't be doing it with them. Your physicality, your height, your weight, your body type, your reproductive capabilities, your physical response to becoming turned on, all of those things influence the way you see yourself and the way you put yourself in the world and the way people respond to you. So that's what we mean by sexuality. If you weren't sexual, you wouldn't be a human. Think about it that way. And our kids are human, from way little to teenagers to way big. A sexually healthy person has good knowledge of their body, the way it works, has an appreciation of their body, where they are, at that point in their lives. Healthy sexuality basically means the right things are happening at the right time. Independence and vulnerability for young people. I mean, a lot of people say to me, isn't it terrible that teenagers feel invulnerable? I think it's really necessary that teenagers feel invulnerable at some part in their development. Because how do we ever learn to leave this safety and security, hopefully, of our home world, our little nest? I'm like, okay, go out on your own there and do something in the world. It's a lot easier if you feel powerful and invulnerable to do that than if you feel really scared. There's really good research that shows, this is true for babies and for seniors, that if people don't get touched, they die faster. Our seniors, our elders, maybe our parents, our grandparents, live in a society that basically says, oh no, you're done with that. No. Sex? No. No. Ew. No. But I can tell you that the sexuality education field, that's the new frontier. Working with older people, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, on healthy sexuality. You know, we have this media that promotes sexualization of kids from very early ages. And that's different than what kids should be hearing at that point about who they are. We have gender roles that lock people into very rigid, acceptable behaviors of what are boys and what are girls. And that can really be a message that runs contrary to what some people naturally feel themselves to be. We have similar messages about orientation. How many people actually had a sex talk from their parents at some point in their lives? Okay. Keep your hands up if it was a good sex talk. One of the problems with talking about sexuality, especially to kids, is that we're not speaking the same language. There's slang, there's secret language, there's childhood language, romantic language, archaic language, and medical biological language. Slang is probably the most comfortable language for our kids to speak in. I'm not sure that really we want to aim to have our serious conversations with our kids at the level of slang. I think it's a good foot in the door moment. What I have found to be more effective is, rather than say, what do you mean by that, is what do kids mean when they say hook up? The number of young women who come into my class in a fairly well-to-do suburb of Philadelphia who do not know the proper name for their own genitals is amazing. The number of adult women I have met who do not know that that thing is called a vulva and not a vagina is stunning. Early in their life, had conversations like this from their mom or dad. Someday, someone may want to touch you down there. And you should be protective of down there, because down there is a very private and personal spot. And someday you may want someone to touch you down there. But I don't think people should touch you now, down there. How far? We have childhood language. And this is that language that often is talked about as protecting the innocence of children, although I really think it's about covering the discomfort of adults. That's your down there. And that's a message that they get. And it can really create some shame and some discomfort and some difficulty in why does this have a different name? And I think there's some childhood language that makes sense for developmentally where they are with their brains. Romance language is a language I think is sorely lacking in a lot of our conversations about sex. Make love, like arouse, like lover. Those are all nice words. Somewhat more gentle, somewhat more intimate, connective kind of language. I define sexual activity, just so you know, in my class as if anybody besides you is involved with your genitals or anus in any way. So I say, think about the person you're sexually active with if you're sexually active. Would you call that person your lover? Would you say that you have passion for that person? Would you say you feel intimate with them? So to say, you should love somebody before you have sex with them can be a very confusing message. So I don't think any of these languages is wrong all of the time. I think they all have their uses, and I think the more multilingual we can be, and the more we can talk to kids about being multilingual, can really be helpful. We interrupt this program for a family discussion about sex. I wish that would happen in every house. I think it's, I'm sad that it doesn't happen as much, because often, quite frankly, this is what's doing the sexuality educating. And that's what's doing the sexuality educating. And not these good people. Kids do want to know what we think. They don't want to ask us what we think. But they want to know what we think are the rules. They're getting lots of reasons and rationales out there. Make sure your voice is one of them. If part of your values is, it's really not okay with me if you're having sexual intercourse at this point in your life. What is it okay with you if they're doing it? Is making out okay? What does that mean for you? Tell them that. Is masturbation okay? If it is, tell them that. They often don't know those lines. And the lines they're getting again from outside can be very confusing. So you helping to sort of say, here's what I'm imagining would be going on. Here's what I would feel good about if I knew. Because, we do want them to be happy and healthy and well-adjusted and appropriately physical and all that. So let's tell them what that looks like for us. One of the questions that kids really want to ask, and they're afraid to, is, how did you know when you were in love? How did you manage your first broken heart? That can be a really great conversation. His girlfriend broke up with him, and he said, what do I do? And I said, you feel bad. You cry, and you don't let people tell you it'll be okay, because you don't believe that now. And you say, this is going to be crappy for a while. And it's going to be hard to focus on your schoolwork, and that's okay. And what you might need to do right now is just, feel it, and then you can let it go. But you got to feel it first. And he was like, oh. Because nobody told him it was okay to feel bad. But that was part of it. Let them know that you think they can make a good decision, that you have confidence in them, that they are able actually to do things besides just screw up. I don't think it's a good idea when a girl becomes 15 or 16. We have some families who automatically put girls on the pill as a way of not having the conversation. I don't see anything wrong with a 16-year-old taking the pill if she wants to, and that's a value for you and your family to decide. I get really nervous when we have 12th graders dating 9th graders in our school, because there is such a huge power differential there that cannot be mitigated. When you're in those high school years and early college years, it's the formula for how old somebody's you when you date them, half your age plus 7. If only one person can drive and the other can't, that's a problem. If one person has a lot more access to money than the other, that's a problem. If one person has a bigger curfew than the other, that can be a problem. Of course, the other classic example today is the oral sex example. We're largely talking about people giving oral sex to boys. And what are the girls getting out of that? Maybe status, maybe feeling normal. But I hear a lot of girls who tell me, I don't really like it, but I have to do it. Really? Did you ever say, no, me first? And they're like, ew! How does gender come into this? Why is the penis prized more than the vulva? How can that set up these relationships where there's real power dynamics? There's an amazing, amazing program in the neighborhood where I teach, which is called Make the Call, Take the Call. And it's a consortium of parents who have gotten together and actually made a form. And the form says, both the kid and the parent signs this, like a little contract, and it says, if you call me at a time when you feel unsafe, you're at a party or you're somewhere and you don't want to be there anymore, or your friends have been drinking and you're afraid to get in the car with them, if you call me, I promise I will come get you. I promise I will not yell at you. I promise we won't even talk about it for 24 hours. Part of a safer sex lesson is if you're at a party and there's drinking and they give you a cup, you never, ever, never, ever put that cup down and pick it up again. And if you put that cup down, you get a brand new one and you make sure it's new. Or you stop drinking. I'm not a big fan of saying to little kindergarten kids, little boys, you have a girlfriend? I like the word sweetheart. Do you have a sweetheart? Because sweetheart is sort of a non-sexual word, first of all. It doesn't feel like erotic. It feels sort of nice and sweet. So please jump in, because it's going on. It's just a matter of whether you want to join in and be one of the voices or not. So what's age appropriate for a 13-year-old? I think masturbation can be a really good, healthy way to learn about your body, way to learn about pleasure, way to learn about what you might want in a partnered relationship. 80-something% of kids have not had sexual intercourse by the time they're 15, but over 70% of kids have had sexual intercourse by the time they're 17. Here's the magic time. It's the summer between junior and senior year of high school. Corresponds with two things: getting a driver's license, thinking about college. A lot of kids really do think about and wrestle with the question of, do I want to be a virgin when I go to college? Maybe I just want to sort of, this is the word they use, get it over with. I don't want 13, 14-year-olds having sexual intercourse. I think mutual masturbation can actually be a good alternative. While their bodies are ready at 13 or 14, not sure they have the emotional capacity to handle some of the hurt stuff that can happen. Having the experience of walking into a CVS and going up to the condom case and taking one off the shelf is not a terrible skill. Maybe it's not about how to put it on, maybe it's how to get it. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying to a boy, so you want people to see your underwear? Tell me, what's that about? Girls, okay, so you're aware that that outfit, when I'm looking at you and I'm your parent, I'm totally looking at your chest. Is that your intention? It's about really challenging them and their rationale. Even when they roadblock it, they hear it. So you got to keep saying it. A bunch of girls were wearing, what's that about? Because sometimes when it's not about them, they're more willing, they love talking about their friends. So sometimes that's actually a good in And then you can ask the question, do you agree with that? Is that what you think? Their defenses naturally go up when they think we're coming at them. Don't come at them directly. Or if you want to have the conversation and you really think it's important to have it, put them in the car and go for a very long ride. When their friends say, what happened last night, they get to say, oh my God, you'll never believe what my father did. Like, I couldn't get out of the car. I was like trying to get out of the car. And they just kept driving around. Because, so they actually heard it, but they also get to save face with their friends a little bit. Oh, I think siblings are such good resources and such good models. Do you feel like you have to distinguish yourself from your brother and sister? Where are the places where you find it hard to do something other than your friends want to do, even if you don't want to do it? High school age population. About half the kids report having had oral sex with somebody. Most of that is somebody giving oral sex to a boy. Why is it happening? And if it's just an expectation, really challenging that. Why is it that girls are expected to do this and boys aren't? You know, how do boys reciprocate? I'm not saying boys should have oral sex on young girls, but maybe. What's the cost-benefit analysis of it? I think that's really the key with the oral sex thing. If they're getting real benefits from it, then we're going to have a hard time stopping it. Help them become aware and then become empowered to make a decision. Because I think a lot of kids don't feel like they have a lot of decision-making power around that. It's just what you're supposed to do. If you really like this girl, then, I mean, think about like literally the positioning that she's on her knees in front of you. Would you still do it if you knew she didn't like it? Have you talked about it? Or have you just expected it? This is not just a problem for girls. This is equal opportunity here. How about if we make a deal? I'll answer a question you want to ask about me if you answer a question I want to ask about you. This picture that you put on Facebook, you want to assume that everybody in the world can see that picture. Thank you so much.